Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, and sometime co-host Miss Purrington. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, our advice column, Rochelle Takes on Comedy, and we've got a festivals page and our FPIA page where you can see all of the results from the Cap City contest. And of course, we're best known for our events page for live shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW. If you're a comic in those cities and want your show featured on the calendar, go to the events page and click Submit a Show to complete the short survey. Tag us on your Instagram stories and posts, and we'll share your show promo. Looking for ways to support all these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Search for Comedy Wham on Patreon and check out our subscriber perks. Now let's get back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and we usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, we are talking to the co-host of Willful Ignorance and Daddy No podcasts. And he manages the FMCW Studios, which produces some of our favorite podcasts like Those Above and Why Should We Care? Co-creator of Battle of the Sketches. That's an annual video sketch competition. And he was a semifinalist in the 2022 Cap City Comedy Club's Funniest Person in Austin competition. He just got through recording his debut comedy album in August. And now Comedy Wham presents our guest, Josh Cabaza.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost wanted to say, not Cabeza, right?
No, Cabaza.
Yeah, I know. I think the only reason I wanted to do that joke is because I'm a Lopez, and I thought, well, I can get away with it. But no, that was terrible. So. Welcome, Josh. Do you prefer Josh or Joshua? Because I see both everywhere.
Josh is fine. I was told very bluntly to my face that to stop saying Joshua, that to just shorten it to Josh because it makes me look like a douchebag. And I was like, all right,
really?
Advice taken. Yeah, and it was somebody that I respect, and so I was like, oh, okay.
Yikes.
Yeah. He's like, what do you say? It's not David Chappelle. It's Dave Chappelle. So, oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess that, can't argue with that one.
No.
Well, welcome. I was going to have you make the long trek out here to come see me in person, but we're doing this by Zoom, and that's okay. I know you are a recording engineer expert. I am just kind of I think I can do this by the skin of my teeth of actually having nice recording on my end, and you've offered to put it all together. So we're telling people how all this sausage gets made.
I just learned on YouTube, so I didn't go to school or anything for it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I learned by trial and error. So, Well, Josh, welcome. I don't know if you know about my my little icebreaker question to get things rolling,
okay.
But I like to ask my guests one word to describe their past.
That's a good one. I would say, what's another word? Oh, this sounds horrible. Fake. Not knowing who I am is what I mean by that.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah. I felt like I didn't know who I was at all.
I've seen you on stages before. I've listened to Willful Ignorance. You're young, and you're a young dad. Kids don't let you be fake for very long.
No.
Like they make you figure out who you are real fast.
Yes, definitely.
So we're just going to jump right into the parenting part of Josh. Do you think that comedy made you face up to who you are as a person, or being a parent made you face up to that, or maybe your wife? I guess it could have been your wife too.
All three. There was like progressions because I remember this distinctly. I was picked on a lot in high school, and I remember my mom telling me, because it got pretty bad, when you go to college, you can make up whoever you are. And I thought that was great. So when I went there was Joshua, there was Big Josh, and I happened to be smaller than both of them, so I was going to be Little Josh. And I said, forget that. I'm not starting, I'm 17 when I go to Texas State. I'm not starting like that. So I went with Jay. And I kind of created this whole character in college so nobody would pick on me. And then I met my wife, and she's the first one to not call me Jay. She's like, I'm not calling you that. That's not your name. Your name is Josh. So that's the first progression. Whoa. And then getting over, I had a real bad addiction to Vicodin back in like 2008, 2010 because of some back issues, having an overdose, and then waking up from that.
Whoa.
And yeah, that's another. And then, of course, doing comedy right after, and then having kids. You're right. They don't let you get away with. I can't go outside of the house without. I cut my hair because I had a bunch of hair, and my daughter goes, "You have gray hair. You're not young anymore. Cut it." She's 6. I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Oh my gosh! When I was doing my research, I just learned that you had the Daddy No podcast. So I'm gonna be adding that to my rotation because I am fascinated by podcasts where it's a parent and their kids.
I actually stopped doing that one in 2020 because I had this thing where I was gonna record. Like my grandmother was going through dementia. I was going to say dimensions. My grandmother's going through dimensions. She's going through dementia. And so I only got to record one over the phone. I just put it, and I finally got the Roadcaster. The day I get the Roadcaster, the day she dies.
Oh my gosh.
So after that, all the podcasts with my son, that's his first big death, his great grandma. So the podcast became us crying, and I wasn't going to put that out. So I still do episodes every once in a while, but I keep them for us. But it's the first, I want to say 4 years of my daughter's life. She was on the podcast from 5 months old all the way till she was 4.5. And I got all these cool little, the first time she learned how to use the bathroom, her and my son having a debate whether the earth is flat or round. And my daughter was like, it's flat. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, we've gotten a really good sense of who you are just in these short minutes, but I want to go into the Wayback Machine and find out from your perspective, did comedy play a role in your life growing up?
Oh, definitely. The first comedy special was Eddie Murphy, Delirious, and then Raw. And I would go to my cousin's house because it was like I had two families. That was my family, where I was the oldest and my little brother. And it was very strict. But on the weekend, almost every weekend, I'd go to my cousin's house. And I was the second youngest in that family. But they treated me like I was, one of their own kids. And it was do what you want, pretty much. Like we can watch rated R movies. Our friends can stay here till 1 a.m. So that's when I first, 8 years old. And I'd watch it on repeat again and again and again. And my cousins hated it after a while. But yeah, comedy, me and him definitely... that was both of our dreams. And he really wanted to be a comic. I wouldn't even voice it because I thought there's no way I could ever do stand-up.
Yeah. So in terms of like family and you being the cut up in the family, that wasn't it at all. It was more of you were watching stand-up specials.
I would make them laugh, but nobody knew it's a bit. They all just thought I was a spaz. Because if I try to come up with just regular jokes, they would be like, you're corny, gross. But if I did something physical or was a spaz and messed it up, and nobody would believe me that I did it on purpose, but I'm like, I don't care as long as it makes them laugh. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Did you have aspirations to be a comic as you were growing up, or was that something that came later?
Definitely. In fact, so after college, 2008, I moved to Austin. And I was working at this place called CMC in Buda. It's a commercial metal company. And I was a drafter there. And the reason I went there is because I wanted to do stand-up. So this is how naive I was. I had no idea. I'm 21, 22. I have no idea how it works. I would write out my jokes and I'd practice them in the mirror. I get in the car. I drive to Cap City. This is on a Friday or Saturday. I'm driving to Cap City. I don't even know. Sign up for the mic. I was literally going to walk in and say, hey, I want to go up. Can I go up? Like a crazy person. And I'm so glad I didn't do that.
On a Friday and Saturday.
On a Friday and Saturday. I'm here to go up. And so it became towards the end where I just get in my car and I'd start shaking. And I couldn't even drive to Cap City.
Oh,
and then I came over to San Antonio with my wife, girlfriend at the time, working a 60-hour sales job. Addicted to Vicodin, plus Adderall, plus, I'm 160 pounds. It looks like I'm going to die. I'm 228 right now, which is I'm a little bit, I should be probably like 200, but yeah, I was really, really skinny, and people could tell like, oh, you don't look good. I had big dark circles in my eyes. So one night it wasn't like I'm going to kill myself. It was like, this could kill me, but I don't care. And I took a bunch of Vicodin, the rest of it in the bottle. And then my heart skipped a beat. And I went to the room to go tell my girlfriend, passed out on the bed. Woke up 14 hours later, dumped all the Vicodin. A month later, I'm like, it felt like a reset. I'm like, no, you're going to forget all this stuff. You're going to do what you always wanted to do. And I went to Laugh Out Loud Comedy Club. The same month Raul Sanchez started. Yeah, he started at the same time. And it was my very first joke hit. The very next joke did not hit. In fact, I did the Ace Ventura thing and talked out of my butt for the punchline. And everybody was like, oh, what are you doing? But then I got invited to do a show with one of the producers, and I brought like 30 people out to it. And it was all the people from my sales job who I told, I'm a comedian now. And they all went there, I found out later, to see me bomb. That's what they wanted to see. They didn't go there to support. They're like, oh, this idiot thinks he can do stand-up. Let me see. I didn't kill, but they were like, oh, you got something. You have stage presence, And I had been writing these jokes. I'd written these jokes 3 years ago. So I had, in my head, I'm like, I got my solid 5 minutes. Yeah. So that's how I started.
Okay. So you got your start in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And because you're kind of working in between, when did you get started in Austin? How long? Or
April.
were you?
Well, I had gone back and forth.
Yeah.
Not as much as like Raul or George, but I went back and forth, and then I got so much family up there, so I just stay with them, or my studio if it's too late. So I'll stay at one of those places. But I was never gonna move to LA or New York, but I feel like LA and New York moved to me. And I was like, if you don't do it now, you're never gonna make the move. And the only reason I didn't bring my whole family up with me is my wife just finished school. My kids, my son's autistic, so he's in a special school. So it's like, go up there, make your business work. Once you're making enough money, then you can move us up there. But there's no way we're following you so you can just do stand-up up there. You're out of your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So your first show was when? What year?
2010. It was summer, June 2010 was the open mic. And then I was working at a really good sales job, making 70, 80 grand. No real bills. Like my bills were like $1,500. So I just started producing show after show after show.
Oh, you jumped right into producing. I
jumped right into producing. And for the first 2 years, I was getting shade thrown at me. I'd get introduced as, the next guy is a great producer, never comic. Yeah. And then I remember Jeff, the manager at Laugh Out Loud, told me, he goes, maybe you should stop producing so much and focus on your stand-up. Because it was very raunchy. I grew up with watching a lot of Comic View. So I didn't talk like I do now on stage. It was in an urban accent, we'll say. In a very Comic View. Yeah. Exactly. Most of the rooms that I started in were all, they were black rooms. So my first 2 years was mostly black rooms. And and then I would do well also in the Valley. But it was the middle class, like white rooms that I would just bomb hard. And then it took a while to figure that out.
Okay, so there's two concepts that I want to revisit. I'll start with the first one that you mentioned. Why did you jump into producing, and why did you jump into it so hard?
Because the first 2 months, I found out that I was not, I was the kind of the outcast because I went in there with a very aggressive attitude. And like in my head, I was going to make it right away. Like I remember Stand Up for Diversity did a casting call. It was like 400 comics. It was the one Tone Bell won. And I was on the same round as Tone Bell. And I went up and I'm doing my jokes as hard as I can to a bunch of other comics and the judges, and they look down. And then I see him go up and just destroy for comics. And I'm like, there's levels to this. I'm not there yet. It really humbled me. And then I wasn't getting booked on shows. So I'm like, well, why do I want to? I'll book my own shows. I'll do my own shows. And so I just went to different bars around, mostly on the outskirts of San Antonio. And then it wasn't until I joined the Blind Tiger with Jay Whitecotton and George and Raul and all them that's what really changed. Like that changed my pacing, the way I talked. I actually did an album in 2014 where I recorded all my sets for a year. It's called Blind Tiger Mixtape, and I put it on SoundCloud. So that was my first album. Yeah, it's not what I sound like today, but you can see the definitely the where it's going, the progression.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next question that I want to ask is, so you're doing good in the black rooms, but then the white audience, doesn't take to you. What do you think?
I was pandering. And I was super vulgar. So if you're doing a showcase at 7:30 downtown at the mall, and it's like 16 people, and you're talking just the raunchiest stuff, they don't want to hear it, Yeah. And then one of the comics actually tallied how many times I used the F word, and he goes, "You said the F word 52 times in 5 minutes." That was my And so, they just, and I was like, I would speak 100 miles a minute, just, so a lot of times I found out, they just didn't understand what I was saying. So.
Yeah. This is so fascinating to hear because especially having seen you very recently at the Cap City Semifinals, it's like, I wouldn't even recognize that version of you because you're so laid back on stage and relatively clean. I mean, for Cap City, you do kind of have to play their game.
Yeah, I tried to do my cleanish set that night.
Yeah. Given that it sounds like your early personality as a comic was kind of an aggressive, hustler, pusher, how did you receive that feedback? Like the person who's telling you dropped 52 F-bombs, you're too raunchy or whatever, or did you just let the audience tell you?
I'm pretty stubborn. I had it in my head that I would force the audience to like it.
Oh.
Yeah. You're gonna like this. I don't care, and and I feel that way every once in a while. I'm like, well, you didn't like that. Now I'm gonna say this now. But for some reason, I guess I just have that face where people feel like they can tell me whatever they want. And so they just come up to me and very bluntly tell me what they think or how they feel. I mean, and if I didn't respect their comedy, I would be like, okay, buddy, whatever you say. But a lot of them, like touring headliners, would tell me stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, you've been doing it 20 years, and I wanted to gain their respect. And so I remember Godfrey was one of those. Like he was, that guy was the dude that I known him for, 12 years. And from the beginning to where I was, and it was funny. It took 3 or 4 times him visiting like every other year to finally remember my name and be like, oh, okay, you switched that up. But I mean, to my face, like that was hack. That's very hack. Just want to let you know that. Yeah. But it made me better. And I appreciated that.
Yeah. And then joining the Blind Tiger, that family. That's the impression that I've always gotten of the Blind Tiger venue and the people that perform there. Was that easier to take and learn?
That was probably really the hardest part, because I felt like I'm not funny. I don't know what I'm doing. And it took a year to finally start switching it. And then, there were so many people that went and visited it down there, Anthony Jeselnik, Hannibal Buress and stuff. And, you don't get a lot of big shows. It was basically the Tiger show. And then I would do showcases at River Center for 10 people, or I'd do Laugh Out Loud opening for somebody that has 50 people there. And so it wasn't always a lot. So those audiences were great. And whenever those guys would visit, just having them be like, come up to me and be like, good set, kept me going. Like, okay, I'm on the right track. I got to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Along that, so when do you think things switched for you in terms of, I figured out my formula, I know how to do this now?
Last year.
Okay, I was going to say, some people never figure it out.
Yeah, last year. I went on tour with a comedian who tried to I had to be clean, which was fine. But then I was a stay-at-home father for 6 years. So as I built my business, so he wanted me to play I'm on my period. I'm a stay-at-home dad, like that. And I'm like, that's not me. But if I wanted to go on tour with him, I needed to play into that. So I played into that. And I was supposed to go on tour to a bunch of different places. 2020 happens. So that's all gone, And then I stopped doing stand-up for a while. Of course, we all did. And then when I came back to it, I'm trying to remember my jokes. So I go back and I listen to myself. And I can't listen to myself. I'm like, I hate all this. What's wrong with you? I thought you got rid of that. There's still that there. And so I felt like, just like probably a lot of other comics felt, even though I'd been doing it 10 years by this point, that I was starting all over again. So I'm like, be as authentic as possible. That was my biggest goal. So I feel like the end of 2020 till now is the progression of that. Because I was already going to do another, it's supposed to be my third album, because I did one in 2018 called Clown Poet. And then, so this next one's called Toys for Sale. And I scrapped a lot of that material that I was doing in 2019. And I did a bunch of new stuff. And it feels finally, after 12 years, like me, the type of comedy I want to do.
Yeah. Tell us about, I don't often get a lot of this insight from comics that are put in this situation, but being told you have this great opportunity to tour with whoever, big comic, but you have to do something really specific and something you've never done before in order to, be taken on the road and have this great exposure to lots of new audience members and grow your own career. Well,
it didn't really feel like my career, because I would have to sell merch after and do the social media for him and take the pictures for him. So nobody's coming up to me after the show really and be like, hey, great job. Here's the phone. And I'm like, and I feel like I'm up there and in these improvs around the country with both hands tied behind my back. And I remember he told me, he goes, if you ever get a standing ovation, you're done.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So when he told me that, my first goal was to get a standing ovation. I was like, well, now I want one. And so I said, I'm doing really well. It's a Tempe Improv. And I'm like, I know this is going to get him. And I tell a dirty joke. And wow, it's 500 people in there. It was great. And I feel it in my head. I'm like, stand up, stand up, stand up. And they don't stand up. I get a big clapping break and I get off. And I remember him just fuming right there when you get off Tempe at the stairs right there. He's like, you do that again, you're done. And then after I was like, man, I thought I was going to a standing ovation. He goes like, do you not want to tour with me? I'm like, I do, but you can't tell me not to dunk the ball when I know I can dunk the ball. Let me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I hate hearing those kinds of stories. I mean, I know they happen, but I just hate hearing about it.
The one positive thing I'll say is that it made me write cleaner for so long. So for those years writing clean now, a lot of the stuff I'll say is quirky and weird, but a lot of it's clean because my mind's not in that same mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do your kids react to your comedy career? Do they think it's cool?
They think I'm famous, and
Oh, it's so sweet.
but it really stinks because in a few years, when they really know how to read well, they're gonna be like, "Wait a minute, you're not famous." And I tell them, I'm like, "I'm not." I mean, I remember we're at my mom's house this summer, and I'm like trying not to tear up in the pool because my son, I'm swimming with him, and he just learned how to swim. And he goes, "Dad, are you famous?" And I'm holding him. I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, you're famous to me." And he gives me a big hug, and I'm like, "Ooh." Try not to cry, but I mean, to them, because just like other little kids, they see me on YouTube. Well, YouTube to them is like Netflix. So they're like, "How is he not famous? Like, see you on there."
Yeah,
So.
yeah. How did your friendship with George start up? And
He did not like me at all.
No.
We got all, so George started a year after me and Roll, and I hosted for 2 years. I hosted all the mics, or all the Laugh Out Loud mic, and a bunch of other ones, but it was a 4-hour mic. It started 8 we wouldn't leave till 12. But the reason I wanted that is because I was the host that would do 10 seconds, 15 seconds in between each comic. But I made it like a show, and it was packed the whole time. And so George comes up to me because he kept getting bumped because headliners are coming through. And that was the rule. You're a headliner, a feature, or opener, you get to bump. So you're talking about 15 bumps going through. And he goes, "Man, I keep getting bumped. When do I go up?" And I go, "What's your name?" And he's like, "George." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." I go, "How long you been doing this?" And he goes, "This is my first time." I go, "Pfft." And I turn around, I walk away. Like a douche. He goes, "Dude, I just felt this wave of anger come over my body, and I wanted to punch you in the back of the head. You just walked away, and I felt stupid, and I could do nothing about it." And I was just like, "Oh, I don't remember that, but I apologize." So that was our first interaction, and then him and Raul started hanging out, and I kept trying to sun George because I'm like, "Yeah, this is how comedy works." And then Raul turns to me, and he goes, "Stop sunning him. You're new too, stupid." And I'm like, "Oh, damn. Okay. I thought we were the cool ones." And he's like, "No." And so, yeah, and we've been hanging out ever since.
Yeah. And you did the Sketch Fest come first, or did Willful Ignorance come first?
The Sketch Fest. We started it in 7 years ago. Started 7 years ago. It was called Sketch Fest 3000. It was George's idea. And then we ended up changing it to Battle of the Sketches. And I ran with it. Because I was like, I really like this. And so I feel like I take him with me every year, kicking and screaming. But I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And just for the uninformed, it's people submit sketches, and you had in-person festival with the finalists, right? Or was it more than the finalists?
So we used to do it different rounds. So we first 2019 we went to all the improvs and the secret group, and we for each city here in Texas, and then 2020 happened, so we did an online version. So there was online, and then we did a drive-in, and then 2021 the Alamo Draft House opened back up again, so we did it there, and now this year it was. We were supposed to have it at a few places, but things just fell apart, and so we're not having it till April of next year, and it was supposed to be October of this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a little bit of a break, maybe.
yeah, definitely. And now we're just having a finals, and I love seeing the sketches from all around the world. Like I learned that Australia has some of the best cartoonists. For some reason we get, maybe because they're locked down so much right now that they just have no time but to animate. You know what I mean? I have all that time. A lot of the European ones are silent. Yeah, a lot of slapstick. And then LA, they want to show off their how well they can act. And some of my favorite ones are from New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I think sketch troupes or groups kind of rose to some level of prominence because the Please Don't Destroy guys started to work on SNL. And I wonder, are there any, you've been around for 7 years. Are there any sketch groups that you watched in your first few years of the Sketch Fest, or Battle of the Sketches, that now they're like big time?
Well, we've had like actors and stuff that had already made it submit. So like, you ever seen Dexter?
Yeah.
The Cuban cop?
Uh-huh.
Him, he did one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was about Santas and a kid or an older guy who thinks like a kid kidnaps one of the mall Santas, and then he plays part of the mall Santa cops, and he works for Santa, and he goes in there and he gets him out. And I was like, oh, I know this guy. There's a couple of people that have been on, I think it was called Cake on FX or FFX or FXX or something like that.
Yeah,
and it was like some of the shorts that they had submitted to us. They like revamped it, but they got it in there.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a few. Nobody has blown up. Which some of them I'm like, man, you're gonna be super famous, but nothing yet.
Yeah. It's really cool that they're doing that, and it's really interesting to hear the perspective of Australians are dominating in the animation area, and this is what Europeans are doing. Are there submissions from countries that are like either you're really surprised that somebody actually submitted from that country, or they're kind of known for oppression, or
Iran? This guy from Iran, and it was like, and I don't even know if it was a comedy. I have no idea, but it just, the way it looked was so cool. It was 10 minutes long too. I was like, I'm putting this one in there. This looks so cool. And people watching it like, what are we watching? But I mean, that one, and for some reason out of Eastern Europe, people send us basically porn. It's like, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we click on it and I'm like, this is not a comedy. Thank you for the submission, but this is not a comedy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I guess some people don't read these are the criteria.
No, they just look at the price and they'll go down and submit to a bunch of different things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay. Well, we're going to take a little intermission here, and we're going to do this little card game thing. If I can find where I thought I set the 2 cards down. Oh, there they are. Okay. So this card game, where should we begin? And, oh gosh, I don't even know if my left and your right, or my left, my right even is going to translate. So do you want, and of course, people can't see this because we're doing this on Zoom, but do you want this card? Well, you can't. This card or this card?
I'll take that.
1 or 2?
2. I'll take 2.
2. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read 2 to you, but in the meantime, I'm going to take a picture of the one you're going to read to me. I'm trying not to read it. Okay. And I'm going to send that to you so that you can ask me in a moment.
Got it.
Okay. So the one I'm going to read to you, I think. That was all right. Here we go. What a nightmare! See, this is way smoother when it's in person. All right.
Got it. I got
Josh. A text message I regret sending.
I love you to my boss.
Serious?
Yeah, because he I thought he would joke around about it, but he felt very weird about it and like talked to me. He's like, you can't be sending me messages like that. I was like, I don't love you like that. I didn't mean to send you. I love you. Like it was for somebody else. And so it was just it was very, very, very awkward. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, you had that locked and loaded and ready.
Because I remembered, it's a core memory. Like having to sit down at a meeting with my boss was, not. She's female.
Wow.
Female boss.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I could see that could be a little.
And I'm like, no. I promise that's not what I.
Okay. Did you get the text?
Yes, I did. All right.
Okay. All right.
Yours is, I'm the most judgmental when it comes to.
Ooh. Oh, man. I will say I'm a very judgmental person. Most people don't realize that because I think I try to keep that clamped down, but my family knows I'm super, super judgmental. Probably in public, the most judgmental thing I am is about manners. And definitely around the table, eating
Elbows
manners.
on the table.
Yeah, that kind of, oh my gosh. I mean, you know this, but kids kind of break you of some of your like hard and fast rules. And I gave up such a long time ago about insisting my son not have his elbows on the table. It's like, all right, fine.
I just have to say, slow down. That's what I always tell him. Slow down. Breathe.
Oh.
He's like,
oh, I probably need that.
Mine is work
to be told
ethic.
that too. Yours is what?
Work ethic.
Yeah. I could. I'm going to go into a little bit of a lecturing mode here because in the comedy world, like we give a free platform to comics to post their events. And yes, we're not as big and flashy as Do 512. We also don't get the advertising dollars that Do 512 gets. But it's free advertising and it takes like 1 minute to post your show. So why wouldn't you?
I'm going to do that. I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I had no idea. So now I know.
Yeah, it's like you could post your flyer and it's a really cool website and you can do it on your phone, you can do it on a computer, and it's like, why wouldn't you take advantage of something silly like that? So that's my
lazy.
little.
I feel lazy. I feel very lazy, but I get a lot of, hey man, I got this idea for a sketch or for a podcast, and what they're telling me is, hey, make me a sketch or a podcast. I'm like, I'm not working for you. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that too. But, for those comics who religiously submit their shows, man, I got to tell you, I love you. I really love that you do that because it means you care about getting your show out to as many people as possible. And even if you're the most popular show in the world, you could still join the events page. Let people know that you're the most popular show. Let fans know, because the page isn't just for, it's not just for the comics, it's for audiences too. So,
well, you're going to be seeing a bunch of stuff for me. So,
yay! Yay! Well, I think San Antonio has a version of what we do. So that's why so that's why we've not, we're in 3 cities, but that's why we're not specifically in San Antonio, because I'm not into stepping toes on what other people do. But, if people,
I mean, you got a lot on your plate already, though. I mean, with Austin itself.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go back and talk about Josh. Okay, so we've talked about Battle of the Sketches. We've talked about Willful Ignorance. You guys are like into the several hundreds of episodes at this point, right? Like almost over 300?
We're about to release 200 for Willful Ignorance and 100 for Raul's Nobody Happy.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a Raul podcast.
Yeah, it's on Raul Sanchez. So I do So I switched it from FMCW Studios to Comedy Frequency because nobody could ever remember the letters. And I'm in the middle of launching it. I have the website and everything up, comedyfrequency.com, but I also help produce other people's YouTube channels. So Raul is one of those, and that podcast is getting into thousands of views. So it's really building.
Wow. Well, he's so amazing, and he tours the country and the world. I imagine he's touring the world at this point too, and he just picks up all these fans everywhere he goes.
Yeah, they really like him.
Yeah. I was not lucky enough to interview him in our early days. Laura Smith was contributing to the interviews, and she got to interview him. So maybe I'll get a chance at a Volume 2 interview with him one day.
Yeah, he's about to headline Cap again. They just called him, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
After like 3 years.
Yeah. So now that you're splitting your time and doing much more in Austin, and you obviously saw what the Austin scene was like before the pandemic. What are your thoughts on what's been happening with the Austin scene?
This first wave of comics that came through, it was funny because I'd stay real quiet and I'd hear just people, get mad and I don't like this person, I don't like that person. I'm like, okay. But if you didn't, I don't know, say it, integrate, if you didn't, try to get on other shows, because I saw a lot of comics that are like, I'll never do that show. And now they're on the show. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess we saw, the interesting part, I think, is when Rogan's opens up, there's going to be a wave of not 4 or 5 year comics, which was what I felt we got a lot of in Austin.
Yeah.
They got there in their 3 years. So it's kind of like, they got to create their own voice and say a lot of stuff that if you had said it in Austin before, you're done. You can't say that. But now there's places where that's all they want. And it's weird how they kind of train the audience to want that. So it's weird in Austin. It feels like you're in 2 different cities when you go do a show, let's say at the Vulcan, and then you go do a show at Spider House. And it's like, those are 2 different audiences. You can't do the same material. You better switch it up. But it's going to be very interesting when Rogan's opens up, because you're going to see a lot of 10, 12, 15-year comics move here. Comics that aren't, doing it. They've been doing it a long time, but they're not necessarily in the Comedy Store or in the cellar. So they're going to be moving here, and the competition is going to get real cutthroat, I think. And I kind of like that. I don't know why. I kind of thrive on that. But that's because the system I came up in San Antonio was very much cutthroat, and I have my own way of working things. Like you said, I'm not going to step on anybody's toes, but I'm not going to let you run me over. Yeah. So I think it's going to be really interesting the next year. I think this is just a taste of it. It hasn't even grown that much, because Rogan's Club is going to be like Comedy Store or the Cellar. There's only one of them. And that dude is worth a lot of money. So even if our financial system kind of goes really bad, he's not closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I kind of liken it to, the big cities offer you something for almost every taste. Mm-hmm. So, you can go to Cap City and see something, clean isn't the word, but, kind of mainstream. Mm-hmm. And you can go to Vulcan to see like the really
raunchy.
I wouldn't call the more raunchy stuff, the stuff that you can't get away with at Cap, and each venue seems to have its own flavor, and it's good for the informed audience, comedic or comedy audience to know. But if they don't know, boy, they could get in for a rude awakening if they end up at one place. But what they really had a flavor for as far as comedy is a different place. Yeah. So
definitely. Yeah. And it's funny watching all the little, what's his name? One that was fired from SNL or gotten off of SNL.
Shane Gillis?
There's a lot of Shane Gillis babies where they hold the mic. And they do that. A lot of, I'm forgetting everybody's name. He's from Nashville.
Nashville.
Not Norm Macdonald. I can't remember.
He's from Nashville.
Paul,
not Theo.
Not Theo Vaughn. No, he's very clean. Really clean.
Nate
Bargatze. Yeah,
okay.
Nate. Where they put their hand behind their back and they do this. And it's funny because I'm watching all these the one that I'm seeing Little Babies of now and it's really cool because he's a new comic, Casey Rocket. I'm seeing comics acting like him.
Really?
And I'm like, whoa, that's
no.
Yeah. And I'm like, you're not gonna hold that energy like he does, because that's him. You're trying to act like him.
Yeah.
So I think that this new melting pot of all these different comics from all over the country is gonna create a lot of new styles. And I'm excited for that. And that was one of the main reasons I had looked for a year and a half on 6th Street for a place to have the podcast studio. Because I was like, I need to be across from that. I need to be across from his, because it's like it's like, how can I put it? Like Gold's Gym opened up and I'm the protein shop. You know what I mean? They all want podcasts. It's a gold rush. I'm going to sell the shovels. You know? And then I cut it off hard at 8. At 8, there's no more podcasts. So then I get to go do stand-up at night.
Yeah. Huh. Smart businessman when you have to. You figure out how to be smart in your business.
Yeah, there's no way I could come back after a week of being in Austin back to San Antonio and tell my wife, like, yeah, I made $150. She'd be like, no, I'm killing you. No. So as long as she keeps seeing the money pour in the account, she's fine with it.
She's happy.
Yeah, definitely.
How does she feel about being a part of your set and having your kids be a part of the stuff that you talk about on stage? And I'll preface this by saying, like I said, the last few times that I've seen you on a stage, it has been at Cap City. Mm-hmm. So it might have been a different set than you might do elsewhere. First of all, my wife's very supportive. She actually owns half the company. So she's on the LLC and everything. And we help each other by piggybacking off. Like I did sales so she can get through school. And then when she got done, then I stayed home with the kids and did comedy. And then she went back and got her master's. And luckily I had the business at the time, so I didn't have to go back to work because I was already working. And so now she just finished that. And she's going to be occupational therapist, but she's very supportive. I tell her a lot of my jokes, and I hate it that when I tell her something, she's like, that's not going to work. And I'm like, I'll show you. And then 90% of the time it doesn't work. And I'm like, oh. And she goes and she doesn't watch all my sets. She goes every 6 months. So every 6 months she'll go and watch me because she's like, I don't want to hear the same stuff. And she just makes sure, she goes, I'm just making sure that you're getting better. And my kids hate that I joke about them. Because I made an animation for my last album, and it was about potty training my son. So I drew him on the toilet wiping his butt and showing the thing. And then he was just like, I can't believe you put me on there. And now he thinks it's cool. Now he tells his friends and stuff. So nice.
He's like, my dad has a cartoon about me, but at the time in his head, he's like, you just put me on Netflix and now everybody thinks I don't know how to wipe my butt. I'm like, sorry. He tells my mom. My mom's like, you're gonna give him a complex. You're gonna give him a complex. I was like, I talk about you too, right? She's like, what do you say? What do you say about me?
Was this year the first year that you competed in the Cap City FPIA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did it feel? And I'm no doubt you've known about the contest for the years that you've been in comedy.
I did, but I didn't have an address. So then, yeah. So once I had an address, you
knew how big of a deal the contest was.
I do. A lot of it is low self-esteem, and so a main reason, if you look up my name and stuff, I don't have a fan page. I don't have any of that stuff. I barely got headshots in like 2020, but I pushed Comedy Frequency and FMCW Studios and Battle of Sketches, because in my head, if I push the companies, it's not me. And I had this, and I'm barely getting over it this year. Like, that's your ego. That's your ego. That's not low self-esteem. And I just didn't want that backlash, because the first 2 years, my face was on everything. I mean, I just all the time. It wasn't FMCW Studios. It was Funny Man Comedy Works is what it was originally called. And then I changed it because somebody told me, like, so it's only men? Only men are funny? And I'm like, oh no, that's not what I meant. My mom's the one that came up with the name. And she was like, so I changed it to FMCW Studios. And now I changed it again.
Yeah. So how did it feel making it to the semifinals?
I was super excited. Both times I showed up an hour and a half early. And I was outside and I went over my set again and again and again. And they thought I worked there because I went in a black t-shirt and they let me in. They're like, I go, so where do I check in? They're like, at the bar. And I'm like, no, for the competition? No, they're like, oh, you don't work here? And I'm like, no. I'm like, okay. God. You got to wait outside. And I was like, oh, all right. And so the first round, I don't know what it was. I just had like I felt like I was on the right frequency. Like it just, everything, felt like it flowed. And then I liked my semifinal set, but there was 2 jokes where I felt like I stumbled on the timing. So nobody knew. I never came out the back because I was the last one, but I was in the back yelling at myself like, you messed it up. Yeah. And I'm a sore loser. I'm such a sore loser. So as soon as they didn't call my name, I immediately walked off stage and walked out of the building. And it's not like I hate all you guys. You didn't deserve to win. I'm mad at myself. So now I go in the car and I'm doing the set again and again and again. And it's like, well, why can't you do it? Why couldn't you do it just like that? Why did you mess up on that? And so, it took me about 2 weeks to get over it. Because there's people who I produce their podcasts who've been doing comedy less than half than I was, and they were in the finals. And I gotta tell myself, like, I'm so happy for you, but also get away from me. Like, I'm just, because I'm a sore loser. But I got over it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, you are super hard on yourself.
A little bit.
Is that something that you think you'll ever change about yourself? Because the contest is every year.
My mom's like that. My mom's like that. Yeah. I was the same way when I did Funniest in South Texas, and then I remember the last year, it was my 7th year doing it, or 6th year, one of the two. And my wife told me, she goes, "This is the last time you do this competition," mainly because she's like, "I don't want to deal with you losing, and then for a week you're moping around the house. I don't want to go through that. So this is your last time." And I ended up winning it. So I was very excited.
Maybe that's all she needs to do is just threaten you and say, no more FPIA.
That's right. Yeah. He's like, no more FPIA. And what was cool is the first show, my family, who had never seen me do stand-up, showed up in Austin. And my uncle's like, he'll tell you to your face, like, you suck. You're not. Yeah. Because I remember working for him in construction and telling him I want to be an architect. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my degree in architecture. And he goes, "No, you're not." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "No, you're not." And I'm an idiot. I showed him where I was doing all the curb in front of the police station on 6th Street. So we did all that curb, right? And I remember just pointing at the Chase Bank, I think it is, the big tall one. And I was like, "You see that? That's an owl. And the architect, it's not an owl." I found out it's not at all. Yeah. And I'm telling him about this, and he goes, "You know why you're not going to do it?" And he goes, "Because I don't see the fire in your eyes. You have no fire, no passion." And then with this past competition, he was like, "Wow, I see the fire in your eyes."
Oh,
like, "Oh, thank you, man.
That's
I appreciate
nice.
it." Yeah. And he was really surprised and called my dad up, because my dad has never seen me do stand up. He won't. Yeah, he says I do the devil's work. So he's very, very Catholic. And so he, in fact, I did my album in my hometown. He was like, "I'm not going." I was like, "I didn't expect you to go." And so, like that, those little things kind of like just, feel like you're going in the right direction, and you just kind of cling on to that.
Mm-hmm. You are juggling a lot of things in the comedy universe with the sketches, the podcast, the studio, the podcasts, plural, your studio, and then your stand-up career. How do you prioritize which one to focus on? Family
first. And because I was neglecting them. And so that's first. Like, I'll drop everything and I'll go back to San Antonio for them, and to realize, like, what you're doing is what you want to do, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. So don't take yourself so seriously. And I've been told a lot of times, like, you're doing too much stuff, because that's why I think I'm sick right now, because I worked like too many hours in a row. And, but in my head, it's not pick one and then do that. It's everything has to work or none of it will. Like, in my head, I gotta help build Raul. I gotta help build George. I gotta help build all these other comics as well as myself. My thought process was I couldn't get past any gatekeepers. I mean, I've auditioned for Netflix, HBO, AGT. Nothing's ever happened. And I'm like, there's something either lacking or something they can't they don't know where to group you in. So become your own gatekeeper and take the people with good work ethics with you. So that was my thought process behind it.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about, keeping family first, and then the other stuff falls in place. It's nothing like having a good family support system.
It definitely helps. And also realizing that you can't pull people with you who don't want to be pulled. So it's like, I'm going to run. And if you want to run with me, let's go. But there's no way I can, it sounds arrogant, I can't put you on my back and run. Because there was a few people that I worked with, it felt like that's what I did everything. And then they just showed up and, either did the podcast and that was it. And then I was doing everything else. And so I've learned to separate friendship and the business and be like, and not like, you're done, I'm done working with you. I let them, I no longer like called like, hey, we're doing the podcast. Hey, you got a guest? Hey, I'm not on top of them. So 2 weeks would go by and be like, hey, are we going to do the podcast? I'm like, I don't know. It's not my podcast. It's your podcast. So you let me know. And then a few more weeks would come by and they'd be like, hey, can I do it at this time? I got somebody. I'm like, no, I'm busy. Like, you can't just tell me, hey, a month later, hey, I got this one person I want to, get on. So I had to explain it to them. And a lot of the times it was just like, they treated me like I was their boss. And I'm like, I'm not your boss. This is a partnership. But I'm not going to care about your thing more than you do.
Yeah. Wow. When we put out our podcast episodes, we have an article that goes along with it that we write up. And we have these little pull quotes areas. And I'm thinking, you've said so many profound things that we might have to do more than our usual couple of pull quotes.
Appreciate it.
We're going to start winding down. Is there something that, actually I'm looking at some of my questions that I sometimes pull from, since you're kind of home based and that touring thing didn't work out ideally before the pandemic, is touring something that you would want to get back to, or is family time too difficult right now for you to do that kind of thing?
So I'm 37. My goal is before 40, which is a long time, 3 years. Before I'm 40 is I want to be a regular at Cap City and at Rogan's, and then go from there. Like I just have so much going on in Austin, that I really want to work.
I love that Austin has become this place now, but before the pandemic, Austin was stepping stone to LA or New York. And now Austin is stepping stone to Austin, and people can make careers living here. So I love that. Okay, cool. Okay, so are there things that we haven't talked about that you want people to know about you?
Yes, if you need your podcast produced, I produce podcasts off of 6th Street across from the Vulcan at the Comedy Frequency, address 421 East 6th Street. So let me know if you'd like if you need podcast production. And I don't just do comedy, I do other, if it's a business podcast or anything like that, I can do those as well.
Okay. And how many podcasts do you produce now?
So some are weekly, some are 2 times a week for their Patreon, and some are monthly. So I think with all of them, I would say somewhere less than 20, I think. Yeah, somewhere around 16 to 18.
Okay. Well, Josh, if you're ready, we're going to wrap up with my closing question. One word to describe your future.
Great.
Short and sweet. And focused. Very focused. All right. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham presents Josh Cabaza. Josh, tell us where we can find you on social media, websites, etc., and your upcoming projects.
You can find me at thecomedyfrequency.com, or just Google my name, Joshua Cabaza. There's nobody else in the United States with my name, so I got lucky with that.
Wow.
Well, there was one other person, but they changed their last name, so now I'm the only person with that name. So if you Google me, like the first 7 pages will pop up, and that's all the social media plus other stuff that I don't even know about that you can find. Just Google me. I know that sounds pretentious, but yeah.
When can we expect the album to be available?
So my album, Toys for Sale, is what I'm calling it, will be coming out July 31st of next year. And the reason I'm putting it out on that date is because on that date, 30 years ago, I came out in the newspaper. I was 7 years old. It was the summer. It was me and my little brother, and we wanted pizza, right? And we didn't have any money because my parents are at work, and it's just us and the babysitter, and she doesn't have any money. So, and my parents, of course, aren't going to leave me money so we can buy pizza every day. So I tell my little brother, I'm like, hey man, let's go try to sell your toys just outside in our front yard. We're going to sell our toys, specifically his toys, because I convinced him. I was like, yeah, but you got the better toys. I'd like to sell my toys, but nobody's going to buy them. And he's 3 years old, and he agrees, like, yeah, I do have the better toys. So he took a few of his toys, and I got a towel, and I put it outside, and I just lay, like, there's like 6, 7 of them. I lay there and me and him are outside. He's holding a big thing of water, and I have a sign that says toys, 25 cents. Not even thinking how many toys I would have to sell in order to get $10 to buy pizza. So a car rolls up, man pops out.
Oh.
Yeah. No supervision, just a 7-year-old, 3-year-old in the front yard. I don't know where the lady's at. She's inside the house. So anyway, he comes up to us with a camera, and he goes, what are y'all doing? And I gave him this whole sob story on how my dad lost his job and we're having to move, so we have to sell our stuff because we can't take it with us. And he's just like, oh man, well, do you mind if I do a story on you guys? And I was like, no, didn't ask my parents, nothing. Just, he's asking a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, can I do a story on you guys? And I was like, yeah, sure. Just buy a toy. He's like, okay, which toy? And I was like, any toy you want. He goes, okay, how much? I go, $10. And he goes, but that's not what your sign says. I was like, do you want the story or not?
Whoa.
He's like, all right. And he gave me $10. And we gave him whatever toy. And so we take a picture, he runs the story. We get our pizza. My parents come home that night from work. And my mom's mad. She's like, she thought I wrote a hot check. Because when I was 5 years old, she gave me deposit slips, told me they were checks, and I wrote it out like it was a check, called Pizza Hut, gave it to him. The guy was like, is this real? I was like, yeah, it's good. Then they call my mom at work saying, hey, your son's writing hot checks. She's like, my son's 5. What are you talking about? So anyway, she's mad. She's like, no, how did you get the pizza? And I tell the story again. She doesn't believe me. Well, the paper comes out a few days later, and on the 3rd page is her 2 kids. And the title says Toys for Sale. And it says Josh and his brother, 7 and 3, are selling toys because his parents or his family's having to make a move. So it's a small town. It's 93. So people read the paper. So my mom starts getting calls from friends and family saying, what happened? He lost his job. And da, da, da. She was like, no, Josh. And she told them the whole story of what I did. And nobody was like, oh, that's insane. No, they're like, yeah, that's something Josh would do. That makes a lot of sense. So that's 30 years from that date that I'll be putting it out. And yeah, that'll be my album.
That's an amazing, amazing story. Oh my gosh. No wonder you were killing it in sales. All right. We hope you've enjoyed learning about how Josh got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham presents Josh Cabaza. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Valerie and Comedy Wham, for letting me be a guest on this and letting me talk about my ventures. My album will be available July 31st. July 31st. I was on a lot of medication, like when we did this podcast. So I remember thinking back, I was like, why did I say that? Great. The first thing I said was fake. Ugh. Let me start that over again. But I was 10 years old. It was 1993. And it was the summer. And it was my brother. No, I wasn't 10 years old. I was 7 years old. Apologize. Dang. All right. Start it over. So my album is July 31st. Ugh. My voice sounds different too. That's when I was sick, it sounded more down here, and now it sounds higher. The album will be coming out on July 31st, 2023. Oh, the dog's barking now. Great. Babe, can you close the door?